scribe that is worthy of his calling, please put your hands together for the next act of stage. IB! Come on, put your hands together for IB.
It's a typically serene evening in this tiny village that dwells deep in the belly of Ondo. And as the sharp silence cuts through this minuscule place, still standing in front of this hut is a rarely recognized odd-looking table that has lost 2 of its 4 feet in an unending battle with the termites. But you could tell that this piece of woodwork is a warrior, like its family tree bears bloodlines of fighters, because despite its obvious flaws, 2 chopped off legs, it stood still, and there was still strength enough to gracefully carry trays of ogi and a cord that was delicately placed on it. Despite being teased by the roaming wind, it was defying the odds, oddly enough. And seated soberly behind this funny-looking, resilient table was this frowning widow with menopause cheeks that has long forgotten how to conceive a smile, stern gaze, and squeezed face with eyes on the brink of shedding an ocean. For she hadn't made a sail all day, and this was same of yesterday and the day before that. And while she struggles to cripple this body of water in her eyes from sailing towards the shores of her cheeks, they gushed over in brave waves, drawing the attention of her only child who sat close to her. Ẹ tún bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti sun ẹkún ni. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ má sun ẹkún mọ́ ìyá mi. Ọ̀la máa dà, ìgbẹ̀yìn á dùn. Have you resorted to crying again? Please dust these tears off, dear mother. Tomorrow will be better. There is definitely joy at the end of our struggles, Bolu said as she wrestled with the tempting temptations to cry. And it seemed that tomorrow they spoke of came early. For while Bolu patted her mother's back in failed consolation, trying to uncoffin her buried face from the casket of her palms, their bowing heads were resurrected by the screeching of tires that approached their home. Oda being paid, brother Shegun knew. It's Uncle Shegun, Bolu said unsurely, but surely this was her late father's rich younger brother from the city. And with pleasantries exchanged, Uncle Shegun said to Mommy Bolu, ẹ fún mi lọ́mọ yín, màá gbé lọ s'Èkó, ó máa lọ sí ilé ìwé, ó máa dèèyàn gidi, ó máa lè tọ́jú yín lọ́jọ́ alẹ́, nǹkan tí ẹ̀gbọ́n mi máa fẹ́ leléyìí. Hand me your child out, take her to the city. She would get an education and become someone prominent. She would be able to take care of you in your great day. This is what my late brother would have wanted. And this early evening news made sun rise on the skylight face of this widow, cheeks suddenly impregnated with smiles, eyes sparkling like stars in the prime of the night, face colored with green, feet dancing swiftly like untamed wind breezing through earth, lips professing prayers precisely like a mouth housed the tongues of priests. Prophecies raining cat and dogs from her flood-like mouth, called that mouth-watering. Joy unconfined like uncaged birds winging in the clouds. And Bolu, she couldn't wait for ducks to fade away so she could finally embrace dawn, gazing at the clouds like a stare could somehow pierce open the sky to awaken a brand new day, swinging on a mat like a pendulum, like an impatient could hasten time. And yes, morning came eventually. And then it was time for her to leave. Rántí ọmọ ẹni tó jẹ́ ọmọ mi. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ bá mi mójútó dáadáa, brother Shegun. Do not forget whose you are, dear daughter. Please help me look after her, Uncle Shegun, Bolu's mother said. And as bumpy, muddy roads gave way to smoothly tarred ones, as chirpings and whistlings of birds and crickets drowned in the honks and honks and horns of cars and trucks as mountains and hills bowed so skyscrapers and high-rise buildings could stand tall. Finally, teenage Bolu was in the city where the word stream had little to do with water, where jungles were buried so civilizations could breathe, and Bolu, she was more positive than protons, hell-bent on giving her mother heaven on earth. But they say when you bank on life, you should expect reality checks. And one night, our uncle's wife was away, so he crept into this teenager's room, said what was about to happen was because he loved her, and it was best she quietly obeyed as his hands began to speak violently to her body in a language she was too young to comprehend, said she needed to trust him before he began trusting, as red dots of innocence strolled down her thighs, tears in her eyes flowed hastily like a river trying to catch the last bus destined for the sea. Our dreams soon turned nightmares, pain expressed only in screams that were silenced by her uncle's soundproof palms before they grew loud enough to fill the air. But they were loud enough for Uncle Shegun's son, who also had eyes on Bolu, to hear. So he caught a glimpse of what Daddy had done. And when it was done, Bolu, still weeping like a slaver's cane, still shivering in shock, still feeling dirty from the dirty death of her purity, still trying to bury the dark act of last night in the graveyards of silence and fear, watched helplessly as her uncle's son walked into the room and continued for where Daddy had stopped. So like father, like son, they took turns, and this time she was too weak to scream, too broken to fight, too traumatized to understand. She was told to always flee the company of men that roamed the streets of the city. But the devil was right at home, called that resident evil. So our body became a crime scene, too complicated to investigate. When months on, it was discovered that someone was alive in her, that her body housed the sins of these men like she was Christ. Yes, she was being crucified with tons of slaps to her head by her uncle's wife. You won't tell us who's responsible, you dirty, filthy little brat. Pack your things and head back to the village. You are no longer welcome here. But how do you speak of pain too sharp for tongues to hold? So little Bolu was dumped in front of her mother's hut like a broken toy beyond repairs. So yeah, this teenage girl trying to quieten the cries of a baby boy she clings onto, holding on to her scars that has a heartbeat, a wound with soul and pulse and veins, and each glance she casts as this child feels like she's staring at the very roots of her bitterness. And yes, forgiveness is the elephant that forgets, but how do you forget that the blatant mother of your innocence is the very source of life to this child? How do you bury a grudge so grave when you've been giving its ghost to nurture? How do you raise a child whose every breath makes you gasp for air? How do you hug your wounds? How do you carry pain beyond your age? For the doctors declared her okay, but nobody told her healing has no prescription. It's not a drug you buy off the counter, because only God can erase pain engraved in the mind. And this poem ain't about justice or vengeance, because sometimes justice leaves the broken. Justice often sometimes feel like revenge that's legal. Justice never fills the void in our hearts. So let's picture this. If God can zoom in and capture us from our sinful ways when we were framed by the evil one, snapped us from iniquity, and got us saved in his image, then nothing is impossible. And they say time heals every wound. So I declare every moment become blisters, a covering for every of our unseen pain. This is a total surrendering to God's miraculous power. It's our cry for help, for healing. For healing is when the scars don't hurt anymore. It's that moment at the beautiful gate. This is not an eulogy, but a resurrection. Dry bones rising again. This is Lazarus and Christ, a mockery of death. For how you killed death by playing dead is still a mystery. And on the third day, you got a thumbs up. This is the communion. Your broken, bloodied body for our peace. This is the cross and the crucifixion. It's the woman that was 12 years a slave becoming Django. This is peace. This is freedom. This is healing. This is brilliant light.